Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Oh, my. The gentle voice of his beloved wife reached the fourth's ears, pulling him out of his reverie. Let's go for a walk in the forest? I'm so tired of hanging around in the village all the time. I want to walk in the forest. But, dear, Minato began to dissuade his wife from this not very successful idea, but seeing how long scarlet hair began to rise and divide into 9 thick strands, and feeling a powerful ki, he abruptly changed his mind. Okay, but only for a short time. I don't want anything to happen to you. Thank you, my love. You are the best. Kushina squealed, suddenly jumping up and down with joy, holding her stomach, the inner inhabitant of which was not delighted with the unexpected shaking, which is why it expressed its displeasure with kicks. Oh, Kushina said, bending slightly from the strong jolts, stroking her stomach. Good, good. I won't do that again, my darling. Let's go get ready for a walk with our daddy. Minato Namikaze watched attentively while his beloved woman went up to the 2nd floor to the bedroom, still not believing how such an amazing woman with long scarlet hair, a round face, on which a cheerful smile with 32 teeth almost always shone, with incredible strength in a small curvy body and with an unpredictable character, became his wife, who firmly decided, despite the danger in the form of a broken seal and the subsequent release of the Kyuubi, to give birth to his child. And so Kushina Namikaze, nee Uzumaki, in the 9th month of pregnancy did not diminish her fighting spirit at all, despite the fact that chakra is spent on supporting the fetus and holding the seal of the 9-tailed, and so she knows how to throw kunai, shuriken and everything that comes to hand professionally. It is not for nothing that she is called one of the strongest jonin of Konoha. And now this restless woman is carrying a child from the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze, a tall, handsome, blue-eyed man with short, eternally disheveled wheat-colored hair and only 2 thick strands of his bangs reaching the level of his chin on an oval face, on which a slightly guilty smile occasionally appears. By nature, Minato, unlike his emotionally unrestrained and impulsive wife, is reserved, does not rely on emotions, cold-blooded, acting, officially, within the rules, but does not contradict the voice of conscience. The child, namely a girl named Naruto, judging by Kushina's energy should be an energetic little son. And she, thanks to the genes of the deceased clan of scarlet-haired demons, will have incredible endurance and increased regeneration, due to mixing with the chakra of the Kyuubi in the womb of the mother, who, having found a common language with Kushina, gives the baby his chakra, an unborn girl, in order to reduce the likelihood of the seal collapsing. Which is a huge secret for all of Konoha, especially for the elders and the root, these old bastards and schemers wise, who have lived a long life. Respected people are just waiting for the birth of the daughter of the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and the Hokage, to make her a pupil of Danzo, the head of the root, and to make an ideal weapon. If they seal the 9-tailed one in her, it will be a fairy tale. But Minato was not a fool and had time to prepare in case of the release of Kyuubi and the death of him and Kushina. Kushina herself understood that she might not survive the birth and knew that the demon living in her body would be sealed in her newborn daughter, because only people with the genes of the Uzumaki clan can live peacefully with a cage with a tailed demon inside them, without damage to their psyche. The former Uzumaki talked a lot with the 9-tailed in her subconscious about breaking the seal and resealing it into a baby, to which the demon, to put it mildly, was displeased, but assured that he would never abandon Naruto to his fate and would help, teach and educate him in every possible way. And so the last 3 or 4 months passed for the tailed demon, Kushina's arrival at his cage, dragging one tail away, trying to sit on it comfortably the first time, a lot of conversations, practically monologues, from the scarlet-haired girl about everything that happened during the whole day. Listening to plans and desires after Naruto's birth, the fears of the young mother because of the life full of danger in the ninja world of her unborn daughter, who, according to the woman's complete conviction, will become a ninja, and also a beauty, and boys will run after her in herds, calming the last representative of the scarlet-haired demons because of the possible danger during childbirth and assurances that he will always help the girl to the best of his ability and strength, advise. Just in case, to prepare scrolls with detailed descriptions of various techniques so that the child could figure it out if the worst happens, and leave the key to the future cage in safe hands or create a small storage in the child's mind near the cage with the demon, so that she could, with due concentration and desire, get it and use it, feigned frowning and grumbling at statements about how smart he, Kyubi, is, caring and generally the best, and drive his Jinchuriki out of her subconscious. Realizing that he had become very attached to this mortal woman, who, since childhood, not only was not afraid of him, but could also hit him, having yelled beforehand. Minato, having discussed all the details with his advisor, secured, in the event of his death, the support of the Nara clan for the proper upbringing, education, and protection of his daughter, warning that everything should remain a secret from the elders and Danzo to avoid unnecessary problems. He said who would be the adoptive father for the girl and asked to help him with this difficult matter, since Shikaku already had a newborn boy, Shikamaru. The girl's future adoptive father knows nothing about the unexpected honor and problems that have befallen him. He was calmly finishing his mission to protect some merchant from bandits and was going to return to the village of the Leaf, meet his sensei and his hyperactive wife, even during her pregnancy, then go home and reread the books from the collection Come Come Paradise, written by the great Toad Sannin. The ash-haired youth, despite his age, was already a Konoha Jonin, and could carry out high-ranking missions alone, thanks to his intelligence and abilities. At the moment, the young ninja was returning to the village from a solo mission through the forest, in order to shorten the route to his home village. When there were several kilometers left to the final destination, the youth heard the screams of a woman and felt waves of burning insides, powerful, terrifying in its power, the chakra of the nine-tailed demon. The guy broke out in sweat when he realized what could have happened and at full speed, which he could only develop, rushed to the center of chakra. Afraid to imagine what he might see when approaching the scene. As he approached, the young ninja saw a horrifying scene. The place that was once a beautiful clearing with beautiful flowering plants was completely torn apart. A huge demon fox stood over the body of the dying Jinchuriki and quietly begged her to hold on for the last moments until her child was born. Minato at that moment delivered the baby and prepared the Shinigami technique to seal the Kyubi into the baby. Having delivered the baby, Minato activated the technique, begging the death god to seal the full power of the nine-tailed bijou into his newborn daughter, in exchange for his life and the life of his wife, for the sake of his daughter. Shinigami began the sealing ritual. At that moment, the ash-haired man ran to his dying teacher, who was holding on by sheer willpower. Minato turned to him and, pointing to the baby, quietly said, "Kakashi, take care of our daughter. Be her father." After that, having cast a last glance at Naruto, he fell next to the already dead Kushina. Kakashi with trembling hands carefully took and pressed to himself the newborn blue-eyed girl with a bun of wheat-colored hair, and looked into the eyes of Shinigami, who for some unknown reason did not disappear after performing the sealing technique. Shinigami slowly moved his gaze from the sunny girl to the ash-haired dark-eyed youth and back to the girl, slowly and gracefully knelt down on one knee in front of them and touched the girl's forehead with the fingers of his right hand. The young man watched the actions of the god of death in mute admiration and horror, not allowing the thought of covering the child with himself or running away from this damned clearing. He simply watched as the girl's hair changed from wheat to ash under the influence of Shinigami's powers, and her blue, like the clear sky, eyes acquired a purple color, similar to the color of magnificent blossoming lupins. While Kakashi sat and looked at the girl's changes in shock, Shinigami stood up and disappeared in a soft bluish glow, leaving the new father with a baby and two corpses. Hatake Kakashi, a 16-year-old Konoha Jonin, waking up when the child in his arms began to cry, suddenly realized that the girl had never cried before, neither during the sealing nor during the change in appearance. Surprised to himself by the strange behavior of the child, who had calmed down by this point, Kakashi removed the mask that hid half of his face and said softly, looking at the girl, "Hello, Hatake Naruto. I'm your dad, Hatake Kakashi, known as the Copy Ninja or Sharingan Kakashi. And we're going home to the village hidden in the leaves now." The girl watched all the actions of her proclaimed father very attentively, as if she understood everything that she, now her dad, was doing, and even managed to make an appropriate and trustingly fall asleep in the arms of the shinobi. Minato Namake's plan was practically flawless: entrust the upbringing of his daughter to his student, leave them his house and the financial state of the Namake's family as an inheritance, sealed in various scrolls, hidden scrolls with descriptions of techniques in all the secret corners and crevices that will open only to a person in whose veins the blood of Uzumaki flows, the help of an advisor and best friend in the affairs of the Hatake family, which immediately gives hope for a happy childhood and the best upbringing for the young kunoichi, and the rapid acquisition of a friend or friends from the Nara clan, at the very least. But the flaw was in the youngest foster father. After all, he had only recently turned 16, but he had been in ANBU for 2 years, then left to become a regular jonin, so he should have been able to handle a little girl. That was what the ash-haired boy thought when he read his teacher's farewell letter, given to him by a little toad, Minato-sensei's last summons. It was strange for Kakashi to realize that he was now sitting on the torn-up ground with a newborn girl in his arms, whose parents had died of an unknown cause, and now their corpses lay next to each other, as if they had decided to take a nap under the rays of the setting sun, and not save this miserable world from the coming of the strongest uncontrollable Biju. The young man had a strong feeling that the 2 dead people would rise, their faces would light up with their signature smiles and say that this was all a lie. But time passed and nothing changed, only the child began to toss and turn in the arms of the young shinobi and quietly whine from the cold. The guy suddenly shuddered from the unexpected actions of the baby, carefully transferred the child marked by the god of death himself to one hand, and with the other began to rummage through the bag for all the seals, for some kind of blanket, in order to carry the child to the village safe and sound. After all, he is responsible for this baby. If not him, then no one will take care of her, she will remain an orphan for the rest of her life. Having finally found a camp blanket, Kakashi wrapped his child in it with the utmost care, so that it would not be cold, there would be access to oxygen and comfort. But he worried in vain. The girl, clearly not feeling discomfort in the temporary bed, cooed something, drooled and fell asleep. Kakashi realized that there was very little time, soon it would be necessary to feed the baby, and for this he needed milk or formula, but where to get it, how to feed, how many times a day, and many other thoughts replaced one another overnight in the shaggy head of the ninja. But the sharp smell of a living human body and the feeling of familiar chakra greatly alerted the young father. After a few moments, he realized who the smell and chakra belonged to, and, frankly speaking, this made it easier, since he was able to find a way out of any situation. "Hello, Kakashi-san." A quiet, slightly sad voice of the late Hokage's advisor rang out. "I see the worst has happened, to our great misfortune. Tell me, what are you going to do with this girl?" "Hello, Shikaku-san." The young man began after a slight hesitation. But looking at the bundle in his arms, he continued firmly, without a drop of doubt. "I am going to raise Naruto as my daughter. It is not about Minato-sensei's request. She is the only one left from my dearest people, who replaced my parents, became mentors and good friends. I want her to be happy. And I have to do it. From now on, she is Hatake Naruto, the daughter of Hatake Kakashi." The decisive, direct gaze of the dark eye met the calm eyes of the brown eyes. "Only my death can change this." Shikaku sympathized with this child, who looked at him as if one wrong word and he would pounce with the purpose of tearing him apart. Destroying. It was this child who went through the Third Shinobi War, became a legendary ninja, went to ANBU in order not to be seen once again, because the deep wounds inflicted by his own father in early childhood were fresh in the memory, and only 6 months ago he took several missions, immediately after receiving the Jonin vest and voluntary suspension from service in ANBU. He looked like an ordinary, not a child, no, an adult, battered by life, but holding on to his anchor, which was Minato and Kushina. They knew about it and therefore were able to entrust him with their only, dearly loved daughter even in the womb of her mother. The old anchor is no more, but there will be a new one, the same girl that her adoptive father so fiercely protects. "Very well," Shikaku said after a short silence. "We must seal the bodies and bury them properly, but first we must destroy all traces of you and the child. Otherwise, the elders and Danzo may try to take Naruto, even by force." "Yes, sir." "Can you hold her for a bit?" Kakashi said quietly to the head of the Nara clan, who stood motionless, afraid to disturb the child's sleep. Having handed over the child, he quickly bit his finger and made the necessary seals, summoning technique. In place of the summoning seal appeared an eternally sad pug in a blue vest with the Konoha symbol. The pug sighed and sadly said without greeting, "How can I help you, Kakashi?" "Pakken, we need to rid the clearing of my scent and traces, as well as this little one, as if she had never been here. I've got all the dirty work again." The gray pug sighed heavily, looking around the clearing, calculating something in his head and saying, "Call 2 more dogs and we'll do everything in 5 minutes. By the way, Kakashi, you should take this child into the house, otherwise she'll get hungry soon. Thank you, Pakuan, the young man said sincerely to the pug, fulfilling the dog's request. Taking his child from Nara, he said thoughtfully, what should I feed her? How should I take care of her? What should I do? Don't worry, my young friend, Shikaku said, nodding approvingly. In this regard, you can count on my help, especially since you will now live next to the Nara clan. And my son is growing up, so they will develop together. Shikaku-san, I sincerely thank you for your help, Kakashi whispered with feeling, bowing slightly. Afterwards, Hatake Kakashi immediately headed to the village. After all, the nine-tailed beast that had escaped had already caused a lot of noise, and its fire chakra had instantly spread for kilometers, causing a stir in the hidden leaf. Shikaku shrugged at the young father's words, also heading towards the village, thinking about Shikamaru's joint training with Naruto and shudderingly recalling Kushina's character, secretly praying that the girl would not take after her mother. Otherwise, the village would not stand for long with an active and inventive little hurricane disaster. On the way to the village, Kakashi told Shikaku what he had seen and heard in the unfortunate clearing, where, judging by the tracks, there had been a fierce battle with unknown attackers, which had caused the Kyuubi to be released from its host. He told him about Shinigami and Naruto, about the letter and the teacher's last request. Shikaku listened silently, nodded at times and was glad that this poor child, who had just recovered from the war that had ended, forced to grow up early, had agreed to shoulder the heavy burden of a newborn child. He was also surprised that Kakashi did not allow himself to be sad, concentrating almost all of his attention on the tiny girl in his arms. Although his movements were clumsy due to lack of experience, this would quickly change for the better. You know, Shikaku-san, I am still amazed at how Kushina could sense a catastrophe. She had two frightening abilities. And now it is clear why she carried two scrolls for sealing the body, the ash-haired man said uncertainly, not taking his eyes off the baby. And to plan everything so much for the last 6 months. I can't imagine how Minato-senpai, knowing about the threat to the lives of his wife and daughter, so cold-bloodedly made plans, prepared the ground for Naruto's subsequent training and life. This, Kakashi's voice trembled. It is terrible and probably very scary to know that soon not only you can die, but also your other half and all that will remain of you is a tiny baby with the power of the demon Fox himself against the whole world, which they will try to use by any means. Minato was never a fool. He was the only one who saw how much this situation worried Kushina. And for their sake he prepared everything, if they still got into trouble. But he never dared to despair, and he did so much secretly over the past 6 months, and by his appearance you can't tell that he cared about anything except his daily duties, Nara said calmly, sadly looking at the darkening sky. Although Kushina surprised me with her premonitions. But alas, now we can only make sure that their child grows up in love and understanding. Now with the death of the Hokage, a hard time will come until the third at least a little bit resolves the situation. Yes, there is a lot of work ahead for all of us. After that, the shinobi each immersed themselves in their own thoughts and the rest of the road was passed in silence. During this time, the dogs, led by Pakken, reported on the work done. As they approached the village, the representatives of the two clans felt a growing sense of anxiety and danger with each step. The shinobi looked at each other and with special caution and stealth ran along secret paths that few knew about. Arriving at the village, they saw corpses of people, ANBU, Jonin, Chunin, civilians. There were especially many dead with the emblem of the Uchiha clan. Hatake and Nara, wanting to understand the essence of what was happening, simultaneously headed to the Hokage's residence, where, judging by the chakra, the third was located. Hello, Hokage-sama. We have very bad news for you. The head of the Nara clan began to speak, flying into the office. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze and his wife, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Kushina Namikaze Uzumaki, died in battle with unknown opponents. The Kyuubi and the newborn girl are missing. There are no traces. How? What? Shikaku, are you sure? The third said, confused. Who can confirm the information and where are the bodies? I can confirm, Hokage-sama, the ash-haired man said in a confident but sad voice. When I was returning from a mission, I felt the Kyuubi's chakra in the forest near the village. There was a clearing in that place, where, judging by the fox's residual chakra, there was a terrible battle. There were no traces left of the Kyuubi, and we couldn't find the girl even with the help of a summoning. And the bodies? The former Hokage, who had come to his senses, asked imperiously. The bodies are sealed in scrolls. Here they are. Nara held out 2 large scrolls. Thank you. Go ahead, the third shinobi dismissed them, but seeing the bundle in his hands, Hatake exclaimed, no, wait. Kakashi-kun, what's that in your hands? Kakashi hugged the bundle closer to himself and stared into the eyes of the respected old man with an unblinking gaze. Without any respect, this is my daughter. Hatake Naruto. I see. Sorry, Kakashi-kun. At least one piece of good news today. Congratulations, the third smiled lightly. Hokage-sama, tell me what happened in the village during our absence, asked the head of the Nara clan. Then the door opened with a bang and a commanding voice said. The Uchiha clan rebelled. Especially the younger generations. Uchiha Fugaku and his confidants tried to suppress the rebellion on their own, but you can see the result for yourself. Only Fugaku's sons survived, Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Sasuke. And that was because they ran away to train outside the village. Thank you for your answer, Danzo-san, Nara bowed politely. Hokage-sama, can we go? Yes, of course. Go. The shinobi dissolved into Shunshin, leaving 2 long-since elderly people in the office. Hiruzen, is this her? It looks like Danzo, but you won't be able to get close to her. You saw how they reacted to the question. Of course I would. Like 2 wild dogs ready to tear our throats out at any moment. I don't know about you, but I will be watching the Hatake family. With these words, Shimura Danzo, aka the head of the secret organization Root, left the office. Yeah, it's going to be tough for us now, the third Hokage said into the void with a heavy sigh and got to work. Hatake Kakashi was able to move into the new house without any visible problems. After all, he was single and young, so there were few things in his previous apartment. So there were no particular problems with the move. But in the new place, small troubles began to be connected with each other, threatening at any moment to turn into loud crying of a tiny girl, who now has everything for a good infant childhood. The young father thanked the thoughtful Namake's family almost every day for preparing all the necessary equipment, diapers, undershirts, some ointments, creams, powders, toys, rattles and many other scary and incomprehensible things that Hatake did not touch until Yoshina, Shikaku's wife, explained in detail what pacifiers, bottles, and other gadgets were for. Fortunately, this sweet but very temperamental woman immediately dedicated to Kakashi that most of the gadgets were not intended for chemical experiments, but for the child. And then hell began. The child must be constantly fed, changed if she went to the toilet or sweated, and all this is accompanied by grunting and dissatisfied grumbling in an incomprehensible language, and sometimes even the child screaming. And also constantly take care of her skin, so that, God forbid, some nasty appears somewhere. Talk to the girl, carry her in your arms all over the house, play with her, sing lullabies so that she sleeps and many other things. Kakashi was surprised at how much time the child took. And it was Tobirama-sama's glory that there was shadow cloning, otherwise the young man would not have time for anything, especially with household chores, because the house had to be clean so that the child would not have any illnesses, like allergies or something worse. Thanks to Yoshina, who scared the young father with all sorts of stories that old ladies scare young mothers with, so that they would be more attentive to the child and ensure the house was clean and cozy. When at home, the ash-haired young man leaves his mask and protector on the nightstand at the entrance and wears a loose t-shirt and shorts. And looking at him, you can say that he is damn handsome. An oval face, fluffy and soft ash hair, large dark brown eyes, almost black, a long scar crossing the eyebrow and left eye and a mole under the lip on the left side of the face. But the young man prefers to hide his face behind a mask, and pulls the protector over his left eye. And also completes the picture is a pumped-up strong youthful body without a gram of excess weight. And this young man, in the first 3 months of living with Naruto, went to all the circles of hell. Several times. In a row. For every little thing, he ran to Yoshina for advice and help with something related to the development and upbringing of the girl. Or just to sit, drink tea, talk with the Nara family and relax while Yoshina had fun with Naruto and Shikamaru. And then again into the whirlwind of domestic passions. And one could even say that the guy got into it, when suddenly in the 4th month Naruto started teething. The girl, like a real ninja, first groaned, and when the pain became strong, she cried loudly. And Kakashi tried his best to distract her from the pain, tried to somehow help by giving her special toys, but his Sharingan Kakashi or copy ninja, who knows more than 1,000 different techniques, was useless against the girl's tummy colic or teething. Glory to Kami that these pains quickly passed and the child could calmly play and develop further. And when Naruto began to roll over from her back onto her tummy at 5 months, it was a joyful event for the young dad. But he never forgot about visiting the pediatrician, who monitored the development of Hatake Naruto, gave the necessary injections, measured the height, weight and many other things that were still unclear to the young guy, and also gave a bunch of different advice on the development and upbringing of the girl, how to massage her, develop her muscles, what to do if there is this or that disease. Hatake absorbed information better than any sponge and tried to follow the instructions given, which, thanks to the Sharingan, were much easier to do. But when Naruto began to crawl at 6 months, Kakashi was ready to go crazy, because the young prankster was too curious for a small child. She would constantly climb somewhere, pull something into her mouth. It was good that Kakashi had hidden all his weapons high up since moving into the house, but a child is a child, so he will find the most dangerous thing from a bunch of safe things and toys. And she crawled much more actively and faster every day, which made Daddy leave at least one clone with her. And do household chores himself. Naruto celebrated his first birthday at the Nara house, with Yashina. When she was convinced of her rightness, it was impossible and useless to argue, because she could also hit. Everyone sat at a low table on pillows. Shikaku sat with his son, or rather with his younger copy, only without scars and long hair, on his feet, and enthusiastically talked with Kakashi, while Yashina was having fun with Naruto. The men, hearing the woman's joyful call, turned around and saw a joyful picture. Naruto, held by Yoshino's hands, walked with her little legs towards her dad, and having reached her dad, who was deeply touched, joyfully said, "Taisaya. Taisaya." Kakashi himself didn't realize when tears started flowing from his eyes. Taking his daughter in his arms, he said quietly in a trembling voice, "Yes, my precious, I am your Tusan. My beloved daughter." Shikaku and his wife looked at the young man brought back to life by a small ray of light and could only smile, knowing that for the Hatake family, everything was just beginning. Kakashi was happy to see his daughter's achievements. She quickly learned to walk, run, and was too active herself, which is why he began training a little earlier than the intended age. And having learned to speak clearly, she amazed with her cunningly twisted logical reasoning, naturally for a child who had recently turned 1.5 years old. The girl was interested in absolutely everything that was happening around her. The eternal questions, Tusan/Shikaku-san, what is this? Another poke of a small finger into some object. What is it for? How does it work? And she needed not monosyllabic answers, but fully expanded ones with a detailed explanation, which simply could not interest an ordinary child. But Kakashi and Shikaku tried to develop the girl's intellect from the very beginning, and communication with the Yamanaka and Aburame clans greatly affected the child's development. Now the two geniuses are reaping the fruits of their labor, answering Naruto's various questions. In the evenings, Kakashi told his daughter fairy tales, stories for children, interesting legends and myths, the history of the shinobi world, and promised that when she grew up a little, he would teach her to use chakra and teach her many lethal techniques that would help her protect her team and loved ones in the future. The girl hungrily caught every word of her father, wanting to learn even more, imagining training and dreaming of growing up quickly to learn more. Therefore, she pestered the two smartest people, in her opinion, with questions. When the girl turned 2, Kakashi came out of maternity leave. He began to take missions again, most often solo ones. Sometimes he was given a squad of academy graduates for the final test to become genin and a squad. But the children did not fulfill Kakashi's main task, for which he sent them back to the academy for the 2nd year. After some time, the children thanked the failed sensei for the only lesson and tried to become worthy shinobi of the leaf. Between raising my daughter, going on missions, and hanging out with friends, 2 years passed unnoticed. At 4 years old, Hatake Naruto was a very smart child, thanks to her father and his close friends, who also served as unofficial mentors. The girl was too smart for her age, and her abilities were hard to miss for the active Jonin and Anbu of the Hidden Village. Young Hataki was observant and quickly adopted the habits of the adults who were part of her family. At first her attempts to copy the suffering expression of her father's face, which appeared after some prank of his daughter, caused only smirks, but the girl improved, and in her one could recognize the lazy features of Shikaku Nara, and the sarcasm of Anko Mitarashi, and the restless energy of Might Guy, sometimes even getting teeth-grinding phrases in the style of the Aburame clan. At the same time, she was kind and affectionate in communication with her friends and family. The mentors approached Hataki's training seriously, wanting to reveal her full potential as a shinobi, exercises for strength, flexibility, endurance, chakra control. They also taught her analytical tasks, developing her thinking, even playing, taught her disguise and the basics important for all shinobi, choosing a more extensive program that is not even taught at the academy. Naruto never argued with her senseis, she followed her usual routine and ran off to the flower field, her favorite place, to admire the flowers and clouds in peace and quiet. On one of those quiet summer days, she saw a girl, about her age, with bright pink hair down to her shoulders, in a light red dress, green breeches, and sandals. As she got closer, Naruto realized that the girl had beautiful big eyes the color of fresh foliage. It looked so amazingly harmonious that Naruto didn't even realize how she was staring at her, which made the girl shrink strangely and become embarrassed, looking away from the piercing eyes of the ash-haired girl. "Hello," the pink-haired girl said timidly to the stranger. "Hello," Naruto answered, coming to her senses, and quickly added, "Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. You're just so beautiful, and anyway. I'm sorry. My name is Hataki Naruto, I'm 4 years old." Haruno Sakura, 4 years old, the girl introduced herself, blushing even more. "Thank you for the compliment, you too are very beautiful." Sakura saw in front of her a girl with long ash blonde hair down to her shoulder blades, gathered with an elastic band at the base of her shoulder, with an oval face and prominent large violet eyes, a straight nose and slightly plump lips. The girl was dressed in a gray dress with a cutout up to her hips, dark tight pants and sandals. It seemed to Sakura that Naruto's gaze was able to penetrate into the very essence of the girl and discern all her fears and hopes. At the same time, it was clear that the girl, at the very least, knew her worth and was not worried about anything, while Sakura was embarrassed by her large forehead, but after meeting Ino, this complex was overcome by the pink-haired girl. The girl sat for a long time in the flower field, talking about various topics. Sakura taught Naruto how to weave wreaths and giggled for a long time at the ash-haired girl's caustic comments about her failures in weaving. In the evening, the girls, who already considered each other good friends, agreed to meet the next day on this field, only inviting Ino, Tenten, and Hinata with them. Their meetings were fun and educational, each sharing what she did best and trying to teach it to others, so the girls began training together. Tenten taught how to throw shurikens with senbons, Hinata and Ino taught circulation and chakra control, Sakura told theories read in dusty scrolls and tomes, and Naruto was something like a sensei, pointing out mistakes in training or theoretical knowledge, and teaching the basics. "Naru-chan, where have you been again? We're going to be late for the ceremony." A pink-haired girl of about 7 shouted at her friend. "Hurry up." "That's why I suggested going after her, and not falling for her provocations," a blonde of the same age said calmly to the seething Sakura. "Naruto-chan, you still need to have a conscience. You even managed to be almost late now." Okay. "I'm not late," the ash-haired girl began to weakly deny it to her friends, but she was interrupted in the most impudent manner. "You're not late because we came to pick you up," Sakura exclaimed indignantly. Her whole appearance showed that if Naruto said another word, she would get it. "Ino-chan and I wasted so much time re-educating you because of your constant lateness. And it all went down the drain for Tora," the girl muttered under her breath, heading towards the academy. "But we were able to wean her off carrying those vulgar books around with us." "Sakura-chan, look for the bright side of everything," Ino said enthusiastically and instructively under the pink-haired girl's gloomy gaze. Naruto sighed quietly and went with Ino after Sakura. When they reached each other, the girls looked at each other and with laughter and jokes went to the ceremony. The parents did not interfere with the girls' conversation and silently followed their children with quiet laughter and kind smiles, knowing that they would continue to strengthen their friendships. Maybe they would end up on another team, but first let them go through training, and then we'll see. And they would still have time to worry, but for now, enjoying their childish spontaneity, kindness, and sincerity, the parents could hammer more knowledge and skills into their beautiful heads, for their own peace of mind in the future, when the girls would go on missions outside the village. From the outside, the girls looked great. They didn't bother much with clothes and chose their favorite combinations. Light dresses above the knee with a slit from the hip, tight pants, and standard sandals. Sakura chose pink and raspberry colors, which perfectly matched her long pink hair to her shoulder blades and large emerald eyes. Ino gave preference to dark colors, making her blonde hair, gathered in a high ponytail, even brighter, and her dark chocolate eyes more expressive and mysterious. And Naruto, habitually dressed in a dark gray dress and dark pants, attracted attention with her loose, hip-length, ash-colored hair and large purple, like blossoming lupins, eyes. There were many children their age at the ceremony. They were laughing and having fun. With the appearance of the third Hokage on the stage at the academy, everyone suddenly became quiet and pricked up their little ears, because the venerable Hokage has great authority and is wise, fair, and the strongest ninja in the hidden village of the Leaf. Without disturbing the children as they listened to the speech about becoming a shinobi on the dangerous path and the will of fire, the adults moved away and discussed their own topics, the politics of countries, the affairs of villages, missions, and many other things that were uninteresting to children's minds. And the father of the ash-haired girl rejoices, looking at his daughter, and understands that the day is not far off when Danzo will begin to act again. He has been hiding in his root for too long. Danzo Shimura himself secretly rejoiced at the rapid maturation of Hatake Naruto, because the old man had many plans for her, but first the academy, and then, when the girl becomes a genin and begins to carry out missions outside the village and beyond the supervision of Hiruzen and her adoptive father, the fourth smut, she herself will come into his hands all embittered and broken. She will become his most interesting experience, after the Sharingan. Welcome, this academy will become your home for the entire learning process. Nice to meet you, I am Yumino Irika and I am your homeroom teacher. Hatake Kakashi doted on his daughter. She became the meaning of his life. He knew that his girl would want to become a Leaf Shinobi and trained her from childhood. Nara suggested that Naruto could be trained through play, which the young father constantly used. Thus Naruto learned the basics of espionage and disguise. Sometimes she went to improve her skills herself, sometimes she even brought interesting news about the lives of some friends and acquaintances. It became their little ritual. When Kakashi came home from a mission, Naruto told him everything she could gather during that time, made conclusions, and shared them. After that, she listened to useful advice and comments. Mistakes did not upset the girl, who was not even 6 years old. She listened attentively and tried again, constantly improving. Young Hatake was thoroughly prepared for the academy. In addition to disguise and espionage, she had good Tai skills, thanks to Might Guy, good ninjutsu, although Jinjutsu was almost impossible for the girl, but thanks to Kurenai and Itachi, she was able to recognize and dispel illusions very well for her age. She was also a master at throwing kunai, shuriken, and senbon. Shiranui Genma, who never parted with the senbon in his mouth, taught her the latter brutally. Kakashi promised to give his daughter a summoning scroll after she received the genin headband. Naruto, who had dreamed of this, was very happy. Kakashi was also irritated that his daughter was considered a Haim of the Hatake clan, even though everyone knew about the disintegration of the clan and Kakashi's refusal to inherit the title of head from his late father. But unofficially, the Hatake clan is considered alive, even though it consisted of 2 people. This was confirmed by letters to match Naruto Haim with an heir from another clan. For the sake of Naruto's happiness, his father refused with such etiquette turns of phrase that even Hayashi Hyuga, famous for his teeth-grinding etiquette and ceremony, became envious. Hatake Sr. did not hide this situation from Naruto, because forewarned is forearmed. So, the daughter was prepared, both in terms of etiquette and ceremony, and knew how to react to various kinds of incidents. Naruto's developed logical thinking could compete with the genius of Shikamaru Nara. During a game of shogi they often played with such passion as if they were fighting to the death on the battlefield, and later it turned out from the children themselves that in fact they had stakes, namely the wish of the winner to the loser. Therefore, it was interesting to watch the children's game. Multi-move strategies were rejected one after another during one game, opponents amazed their friends and parents with unusual decisions in seemingly losing situations and incredible combinations. Often their games came down to a draw, but there were no repeated strategies. The children tried to come up with something new and unusual to beat the opponent, to make him fulfill a simple childish, but hurtful desire. Kakashi admired his daughter and closely followed her development. But he had no idea when Naruto began reading his collection of books. She especially liked the Come Come Rai series written by the Toad-san Jiraiya himself. But he couldn't do anything about it, as Mitarashi Anko said, like father, like son. Hatake Kakashi trained his daughter hard, knowing that outside the village she would be looked after by her team and her Jonin mentor. And he would also be running solo missions, avoiding medical examinations and waiting for Hatake Naruto to return home. But Kakashi didn't know that the Hokage had already figured out the future teams of genin and their mentors. He understood that the cunning head of the village had already determined Hatake's role for one of the teams and was thinking of a way to get rid of her. But he didn't know what kind of team it would be and how it would come back to haunt him in the future. The academy, in the opinion of young Hatake, was boring. Yes, of course, training fights became at least some kind of entertainment, but alas, not for long. What could we talk about if she, reading a book and completely ignoring the enemy, won only by dodging opponents? This is somehow not serious. And in theory, she either slept or read, provocatively holding out the orange cover in front of the teacher. The senseis, led by Irika, held on and tried to instill a thirst for knowledge in the ash-haired girl in various ways, with unusual books, various practical ones, even through Sakura and Ino. The latter, in their favorite manner, tried to hammer, in the literal sense of the word, respect for the senseis and at least some discipline into Naruto, but achieved a snort from the ash-haired girl and a transfer to Shikamaru, where the two of them slept together and complained about the problematic universe. Hatake Sr. only shrugged his shoulders at the complaints of his old friend and intensified his training, because his daughter had finally learned her element. There were 3 of them: lightning, wind, and water. Surprisingly, because according to Kakashi's calculations, the wind element should be clearly expressed, not lightning, but no matter, it's even more interesting this way. So now Naruto with 100 clones was trying to strike at least some spark using chakra, another 100 were trying to trim a leaf, and the third 100 were learning water. Hatake also went to medical courses with Haruno and Yamanaka, improving her chakra control, and also trying to figure out her father's mystery, why he has a highly developed sense of smell and hearing, which is why she went to these courses. Kakashi just smirked, looking at the proudly snoring baby. She was only 7, and she was already interested in such complex things. Although this was Naruto, her stubbornness would overcome even such obstacles. "Tsunade, I'm back from the academy," a clear voice rang out in the hallway of the Hatake house. "Tsunade, are you home? Did you dig out a new book and get lost in it again? Naru-chan, how is it at the academy? Come in, let's eat," came from the far kitchen. "Tsunade, remind me why I can't graduate from this boring institution right away, passing all the exams?" Naruto said lazily. "I'm already tired of going there." "Emma. Naruto, you've only been there for 3 months, and you went there because of your friends, and the argument about the summoning scroll. Don't you want more?" The man's sarcastic chuckle made the girl make a funny face. Yes, you're right as always, and I still need to knock all the nonsense out of Sasuke team. So be it, I'll graduate from the academy. Kakashi, watching his funny little daughter, could only be touched, because she was so beautiful in her youth. So he began to think like Guy, and this is bad, he needs to beat him again in some competition, maybe it will get easier. A heavy sigh brings Kakashi back to reality. "Emma, Naruto, if you want, you can graduate from the academy as an external student," Kakashi began to say, but was interrupted. "No. I will finish with everyone else. I have decided so," a determined look and a firm voice, confident in its rightness. "Sasuke, you're an idiot," the girl's voice thundered. "Dobe, it's not my fault, it's all because of," the boy's voice, calm as the surface of the sea, was interrupted by a good blow to the jaw. "Are you completely crazy, Hatake? You beast, that was my first kiss," a girl of about 12 with ash blonde hair growled menacingly. "Dobe, don't worry, it won't just be your first kiss that will be mine," the black-haired boy named Uchiha Sasuke said confidently and quickly ran off in an unknown direction so as not to die accidentally from the thrown kunai. Meanwhile, Sakura held her friend in an iron grip, and Ino gagged her, not allowing her to get mad like the last shoemaker and challenge Sasuke to a fight. Kakashi found the girls in this state when he arrived. He asked them to free their daughter, who was as angry as Kyuubi himself, and asked what had happened to Naruto and how she had ended up in this state. Sakura, as the calmest one, began to explain, leaving Naruto to puff angrily and Ino to calm her down. Kakashi-san, you see, Kiba is constantly pestering Naruto, but she usually ignores him, then destroys him in battle, and today his idiocy went beyond reasonable limits and Naruto got into a fight with him, Sakura said uncertainly, glancing sideways at her explosive friend. So, when the skirmish died down, Uchiha started to come down from the upper desk, Kiba tripped him, and Naruto tried to catch him reflexively. Anyway, Sasuke fell on Naru and kissed her, and now he said that he committed suicide. Hatake got furious again and, turning to her father, asked, "To-san, when is your training with Uchiha?" "Emma. Today, Naru-chan, will you be present?" Kakashi said, lazily drawing out the words. "Yeah, Databeo. A training fight is a good opportunity to test two geniuses of their year, and as rivals they are not inferior to each other." Hatake Kakashi was simply too lazy to teach Uchiha something new, and Sasuke had not yet awakened his Sharingan, plus Itachi asked his Otuto to find a rival comrade, which would contribute to his self-improvement and strengthening of friendship. Having decided that this was the right decision, Kakashi answered his daughter's silent question. "Tomorrow at 9 a.m., you know the training ground yourself." Now the father could sympathize with the Uchiha and hope that the children would not hurt each other. Sighing, Kakashi remembered his daughter's character and sighed again. His Naruto was very smart and very rarely allowed herself to flare up like that, preferring to be a little lazy and indifferently calm. And little Uchiha was looking forward to the training session, because his brother told him that a surprise was waiting for him at the training. Suddenly Itachi would agree to spar with him, to which the elder Uchiha smiled mysteriously. Sasuke, knowing his teacher's love for being late, was at the training ground at exactly 9 in the morning and calmly did a set of exercises for the flexibility of his joints and muscles. To his surprise, Kakashi was only an hour late and ordered his student to do a warm-up and get completely warmed up. "You know, Sasuke, I decided to do an unusual training today," Hatake said lazily. "It's going to be a training fight, and your opponent." The sensei suddenly fell silent and listened to something in the forest, "is already here." "Excellent." To the boys' complete surprise, an ash-haired girl in her usual gray dress with a low cut to her thighs and black pants with standard blue shinobi sandals jumped out of the tree into the clearing. Everything would be fine, but those violet eyes conquered Uchiha from the very first day at the academy. But the girl turned out to have a tough character and did not want to fall at the boys' feet, just like her friends. This even made it more interesting to argue with her and watch her fights with others. They themselves had never fought before. "Well, Uchiha, are you going to apologize for yesterday?" Her trembling voice did not hide her impatience to beat the brunette as soon as possible. Hatake, you're dumber than you look. I told you yesterday that it wouldn't just be your first kiss." The guy's light sigh, his mask of complete indifference and arrogance, infuriated Naruto even more. "Dobe, I made it clear that you would be mine. Completely. All of you. Now do you get it? Well, team, be careful not to get cocky with complacency." The elder Hakaka, having decided that the greetings were over, explained the standard rules of combat. The children nodded intently and waited for the signal. The signal was given, the children rushed into battle, but since they did not know each other's skills, they began unanimously with taijutsu, delivering and blocking serious blows, rushing around the entire training ground. Suddenly and sharply jumping back a short distance, they simultaneously said, "The Great Fireball." Wind blades. With the chakra Naruto had put in, the wind dispersed the fire, dousing everyone with hot streams of wind. The children decided to finish the fight that had begun with one blow. While Sasuke was making seals and concentrating chakra in his left hand, Naruto grinned and quietly said, "Chidori." The crackle of lightning, similar to the chirping of 1,000 birds, spread across the training ground. Uchiha forgot about his technique and simply watched as his electrified hair fluffed up a little, his chest often rose from heavy breathing, his violet eyes were covered with a veil of excitement and interest, and the girl's figure looked divine against the backdrop of the lightning. Here Kakashi ended the teenager's fight, not forgetting to announce his daughter's victory. Itachi, who was watching the duel, nodded with satisfaction to his thoughts. Such an opponent definitely suited his brother, all that was left was to shove them into the same team. And Sasuke himself continued to look straight into the girl's eyes until she brought him back down to earth with the phrase, "Hey, Uchiha, I won, now apologize." Itachi became interested in the girl's phrase and turned his gaze to his brother. He grinned and said, "Hatake, I ask your forgiveness for my words. I will not say such things again." Naruto smiled, and the adults waited for the continuation, because the guy was not finished. "But don't worry, Dobe, I will act now. And you will become mine." Hearing the girl's roar, Itachi looked questioningly at Kakashi, who shrugged his shoulders vaguely, showing that he had nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, the girl haughtily answered the guy. "Uchiha, you've completely lost your fear. I'd rather marry Itachi than you." This was not the turn the men expected. Almost choking, they stared indignantly at Naruto, who had forgotten about their existence. And Sasuke could not stand it. "I won't allow it. In a week at this time in this place we will have another sparring match." "Yes, please, on to the topic." Kakashi sighed, looking at the stubborn rams, and declared the end of training. The children immediately went their separate ways, leaving the adults under the tree with unclear feelings. "Kakashi-san, what are we going to do?" "I don't know, Itachi-kun, maybe we should just watch first? Otherwise, if we announce the engagement, the other clans will tear me apart. Let's put them on the same team, we'll see, the guys are strong, and Sensei will be with them." "I agree with you, as for the next training missions, don't worry, I'll arrange everything." Kakashi often remembered him with kind words later, although the elder Uchiha, with his eyes sparkling, assured him of his innocence. A week. For a whole week, the young Uchiha trained like he never had in his life. He even became friends with Rock Lee and tried to keep up with his quarter training rhythm, for the sake of sparring in taijutsu with Hatake. All for the sake of one ash-haired beauty, who doesn't even consider him a rival. Outrageous. He, Uchiha Sasuke, one of the 3 geniuses of his year at the academy, a survivor of the Uchiha clan massacre, the owner of beautiful external data without any holes, wrinkles or tattoos. However, there is no trace of a calm life at the academy, because of the annoying girls. But knowing that Hatake couldn't be charmed by his pretty face, Sasuke felt better. He would be able to win this Naruto, and she, according to his brother, would be the most faithful wife of all the female population of Konoha, thanks to the reputation and upbringing of the Hatake clan. And he believed his brother. Itachi would not lie to his brother, because he wanted the best for him, and Naruto was the perfect option for Sasuke. Rock Lee, having assessed the capabilities of his future rival comrade, helped with the Uchiha's training with great pleasure, sometimes under the supervision of Kakashi, who silently approved of the choice of partner and training complex, and then ran away, sensing the approach of Might Guy, Lee's teacher. Sasuke secretly envied his teacher, because Kakashi lives with Naruto in the same house, cooks her breakfast, sees her disheveled in the morning, and also knows her secrets and desires. Damn. Such thoughts made him want to train even harder and defeat Hatake in a duel. A week. For a whole week, Uchiha Sasuke trained like crazy. Coming home, he just collapsed on his bed and disconnected from reality. If he had awakened the Sharingan, it would have been easier, but the Uchiha children's vision and analytical abilities in a short period of time were much stronger than most clans and ordinary shinobi. But Naruto Hatake was incredible in her strength, beauty, and the gene pool of the Hatake clan, and if you consider that Naruto's chakra reserve was greater than anyone else's, and it will grow, then their children will have Sharingan and a huge reserve of chakra. From such thoughts, Sasuke was embarrassed, because he himself is still a boy. First, establish relations, the rest later. Itachi Uchiha spent 3 long days to ensure that his stupid brother was in the same squad with the teacher's daughter and a promising medic. Iruka, the chunin in charge of the teams, was dissatisfied and refused Uchiha's requests, so Itachi had to act through Hiruzen, but this also took a long time, but the result was justified. The team was fully formed and the sensei was appointed. Iruka had to accept the Hokage's order. Naruto was doing her usual routine, warm-up, taijutsu, throwing weapons, ninjutsu, meditation, more taijutsu, and solving her father's problem. What should a ninja do to make his sense of smell and hearing stronger than a dog's? There was no answer yet. Naruto also didn't forget about her hospital classes with Sakura and Ino. And Kakashi Hatake was lazy between solo missions, because his daughter and student were busy training before the rematch and the subsequent exams before graduating from the academy. He even felt sad, because his daughter would be in a squad under the command of a Jonin, which meant she would go on C-rank missions, and he would wait in the village and hope that he would get missions near her group and they would be able to cross paths. Kakashi knew that Itachi would not let him down and would find a good and reliable comrade for his brother, as well as a sensei, and would stand his ground until his request order was approved. Sasuke trained like Naruto, not yet knowing what surprise the elder Hatake and Uchiha had prepared for their relatives. And Hatake Kakashi himself had no idea who would be the sensei of the children's squad, because Itachi only flashed his eyes and declared that their future commander was a person interested in the development of the team. The children would develop at a rapid pace with a decent speed, and would also possibly participate in the Chunin exam. And they would get some bumps in the road before the dangerous B and A rank missions. The heads of their families and small clans had other things to worry about besides the development of Sasuke and Naruto. Root, silent for so many years, began its dark activities again, and this is not good. After all, both Hatake and Uchiha knew about Danzo's obsession with the Sharingan, the cells of the first Hokage and the Uzumaki gene pool. "To-san, are you sure you have to go in this?" the girl asked once again, looking at the gray uniform that was given to her, so similar to the Anbu uniform. "Naru-chan, get dressed already, or we'll be late for your duel," the man sighed resignedly. "So you're already late everywhere you can be. By the way, why do you do that?" "As far as I know, you get up and get ready at least 3 or 4 hours in advance," Naruto said from behind the door, where, judging by the sounds, she was changing. And he remembered why he had started to change his way of life in the first place, spitting on the rules, being late, not completing assignments to the detriment of the squad, and many other things. His daughter brought him out of his thoughts. Well, it looked better than he had imagined. A black sleeveless turtleneck, gloves of the same color almost to the armpits tied with thick ribbons, a gray lightweight vest, dark tight pants and sandals. And if only he had a porcelain mask and a mark. "To-san, can I have a mask like yours?" The unexpected question surprised the man. "Why?" To which the girl thought for a bit. "Firstly, I am your dear daughter, something like observing the clan tradition, and secondly, it is practical. You yourself said that my face shows what I am going to do. I do not have that perfect mask of indifference that the Uchiha have, so I will cover my face during missions and fights." Logical, good. "You'll get a mask," Kakashi admitted that the girl was right. He was glad that his daughter was so smart, because the problem had to be solved with her openness, but she got out of it herself. Kakashi would be able to get it before the fight. Leaving his daughter to admire his appearance, Kakashi slipped out of the house and went to the fabric shop where he usually buys his masks, and now not only his own. The old man who ran the shop used to be in the Anbu and trained Hatake in the early days until he retired, but the old man always had a small weakness in the form of his neck and tried to cover it up in every possible way, as well as his chin, and somehow offered to make Hatake a mask, and it became a tradition to go to him for this item of clothing. Entering the shop, the man saw the old man and, smiling with his eye, said, "Haru-san, good morning. Is my order ready?" "Hello, Kakashi-kun. Yes, it's done. Your daughter has a very beautiful neck, let her do ponytails more often, otherwise she's hiding such wealth." The retired Anbu began to grumble as usual, but he still hadn't lost his talent for determining the size of any neck at first glance. Haru-san, don't start, she's still a child," he began to defend his daughter, but stopped short under the old man's heavy gaze. "Dog," Hatake straightened up from such an address, "Naruto will become a genin next month, Danzo is already asleep and sees your daughter in his bed." Seeing a slightly furious look of the girl's father, he continues, "I understand your emotions, they were like my own children to me, and Naruto is my favorite granddaughter, but I warn you, the first mission is rank C and he will try to get her and little Sasuke." The old man gave the order to the man and quietly said, "You yourself know." that the hive has stirred up again, and Tenzo will soon get in touch again. You can always count on my help. Good luck, Kakashi-kun. Thank you, Haru-san, the man answered seriously, but suddenly smiled and said on the way out, by the way, greetings from Naruto. Goodbye, Haru-san. Hatake didn't like the news at all, but he decided to discuss it with Itachi and transported himself home with his Shunshin. His beautiful daughter was preparing a simple breakfast for two, putting everything on plates, and called her good-for-nothing father to the table. After breakfast and clearing the dishes, the girl was as happy as a little girl about her own mask and swore that she would visit the old man in the shop today and bring him his favorite homemade cookies. They were an hour late to the training ground. If Itachi had prudently not arrived yet, then Sasuke, dressed in the same uniform as Naruto, was already puffing with indignation. A quick warm-up and the opponents stood opposite each other, ready to rush into battle at the signal. The fight began. The children, not taught by bitter experience, immediately rushed at each other, but judging by their movements, Kakashi decided that the children were assessing the strength of the enemy. This is good, at least they were taught something at the academy. The movements are clear, smooth, it is immediately obvious that the week has not been in vain for them, especially as guy students. Itachi appeared at the moment when the opponents became more serious. Sasuke received a strong kick, but managed to knock out the girl's jaw. She set it in one movement and rushed at Sasuke while he was disoriented. Uchiha jumped back in time and continued the attack. The adults noted the level of the younger ones, exchanging news. But the main problem remained, how to protect the children from Root. Both knew about Danzo's obsession, but they could not do anything legally, and getting into the Root base and killing Shimura was an unrealistic task. The children, meanwhile, were already exhausted and acknowledged the draw, but they were stubborn. They approached the men and waited for their attention. Tired of simply waiting, they went to meditate. After about 30 minutes, an unexpected response brought the children back to reality. The men looked at each other, sighed to their thoughts, and Itachi took the floor. I understand that this will be unexpected for you, but Kakashi-san and I discussed it and decided. Congratulations, in a few years you will get married. What? The children responded at the same time, to which the adults only smiled and went about their business. They still had to draw up a marriage contract. Naruto and Sasuke sat and looked at each other quietly, not expecting such a turn in life. But there was nothing to be done. After all, the heads of their families do not do anything for no reason. Hatake Naruto. No, Uzumaki Naruto. She's too much of a tasty morsel for any clan. Yes, the girl is not bad looking for her age, which is a nice bonus, but the most important thing is her genes. The little princess of the deceased, once great clan of scarlet-haired demons from the village hidden by the whirlpools, whose name was taken from the main ruling branch Uzushio-gakure or, simply, Uzushio. Damn, that bastard Namikaze ruined all my plans for Kushina at the most inopportune moment by taking her as my wife, but that's not the worst thing. If Kushina were an ordinary kunoichi, there would be nothing terrible in kidnapping her, because ordinary women can give birth to any man, but not Uzumaki, they are a special case. Too devoted, too faithful, they even killed themselves just to avoid sexual contact with another man while married. It's very strange, but such legends circulated, and eyewitnesses or simply those familiar with the shards of scarlet demons too ardently defend these legends, calling them true. I have been researching this unusual clan since my youth and have found many interesting things in my life. The genetics and heredity of the scarlet-haired are too strong and unpredictable even for themselves. Yes, everyone knows about the transfer of huge reserves of chakra to the offspring of the Uzumaki, which already says a lot, but what is unusual is that the Uzumaki genome can force a weak Kekii Genkai to involuntarily mutate into something new. Which makes you wonder what Hashirama's Shakingan and Mokuton can mutate into. Great, now even more reasons to appropriate the Uzumaki girl, not allowing her to marry. It's not for nothing that the Uzumaki are strong in their Fuinjutsu abilities. The blood of the crimson-haired is itself some kind of Fuin, or these are the results of experiments on the ruling branch, but their research will not be understood by any living master of seals. These seals are too complex, some, judging by the short description, are performed during the ritual by 3 masters of the highest level from the Uzumaki clan, and the scroll also said that from these seals, an ordinary master of the middle level will immediately die from chakra exhaustion. Well, that's not the most annoying thing. I've seen many posts that had the phrase, "thanks to the peculiarity of the Uzumaki clan's blood." To be honest, I brushed those words off at first, but then I couldn't, they were repeated too often and were too obvious. I searched like hell for 20 years and finally found a scroll of the same collector of information about incredible scarlet demons and all masters of seals. The scroll contains exhaustive information written not by a chronicler, but by some lover of stories, but it shed light on important points. This scroll was always open in one place. I know an excerpt from it as if I was born with this knowledge. The Uzumaki clan is known for its great abilities in Fuinjutsu and huge, almost inexhaustible, reserves of chakra, which explains the kinship with the Senju clan, but even the related clan does not have even a third of the reserves that the scarlet-haired have. Many scrolls talk about some blood features without any explanation of what these features are. In the village hidden by waterfalls there are legends about the times when the first representatives of the clan just settled on the island in the middle of the sea. The Uzumaki themselves had a lot of knowledge and skills, which were hunted by almost all the clans of the territory where the countries of water and fire are located today. The clan was very strong and their chakra reserves allowed them to fight for almost a day without a break, but this was not enough, and the ruling branch decided on truly inhuman experiments with enhanced stretching of the chakra reserve. But, as it turned out, 3 masters had to apply the seals at the same time, because the ritual itself required a huge amount of energy and human strength, as well as natural energy, although there were no problems with the latter, because the island itself was a cluster of natural energy, which allowed it to bring prosperity to the Uzumaki clan. 5 years later, the masters saw the results of their work. 5-year-old children already had a chakra reserve 4 to 5 times greater than the capabilities of an ordinary 14-year-old child, which could not but please the clan, but another task was before them, the kidnapping of women. Although the enemies did not cause much trouble in military operations, they were still aimed at strengthening their own positions and weakening the Uzumaki, and this could be done with the help of women. Then the scarlet-haired began to conduct another ritual over their clanmates. It did not require the participation of 3 masters at once, 1 was enough, which allowed the situation with the kidnappings to be corrected in the shortest possible time. The men and women of the Uzumaki clan quickly became famous for their loyalty to their chosen partner, which prevented other clans from laying their dirty paws on the possible offspring of the scarlet-haired demons. But the peculiarity of the new ritual was that there was a special seal on the genitals of men and women for emergency cases, such as kidnapping for the purpose of childbirth. To activate this seal, you don't even need the chakra of the ninja using it, just a bit of natural chakra, which was everywhere and which even seals that restrain the shinobi's chakra cannot block. Such a paradox. But the essence of the seal is that it paralyzes any possibility of leaving offspring. The body simply stops producing sperm and eggs. The affected seal can only be cured on the island of the whirlpool by a specially trained master. The seals they impose are too specific. But this was the case earlier. Later, when the creation of hidden villages and the first peace treaties began, the seal was modified, which allowed the married couple to remain faithful to each other until the death of one of them. The seal became automatic for the spouse from the Uzumaki clan. Since this did not pose any threat to the body, they decided to leave it, in which case the seal can only be removed voluntarily, in front of your chosen one. This is not what Hatake Kakashi wanted for his daughter. But urgent news came about a strange scroll with the symbol of the whirlpool and an even more developed obsession with capturing little Naruto on the first mission of the C rank. This mummified bastard went completely crazy after the destruction of the Uchiha clan. Not only that, in most cases due to his experiments on Mokuton the Senju clan was destroyed, but also got rid of the founder of the second clan, the rotten root of Konoha. The elders Hatake and Uchiha could not officially get rid of this rot, because the elders are completely on Danzo's side, as is the third Hokage. Kakashi hated Shimura with all his heart and tried to save young Itachi from his clutches, otherwise he could force him to do the dirtiest work, from which this child would go crazy and be like clay in skilled hands. Perhaps he would be made a renegade and ordered to monitor a gang of dangerous missing nin for the village. You can expect even more from these old men. Yes, Hatake saved Itachi, but Danzo almost started a civil war, which led to a fully planned attack on the Uchiha. Luckily, the sons of the head survived by pure chance. but both were unprepared for such a turn of events. And the elder awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and Sasuke Sharingan with one Tomo, but no one knows about it except Kakashi. Old people have their secrets, and young people have theirs. All is fair, and it doesn't matter that old ruins have a different opinion. Now Itachi is the head of his clan, and Sasuke must live a normal childhood for the future shinobi. Unfortunately, he cannot be convinced to live a normal life as a civilian or become a teacher at the academy and stay away from battles, like Iruka. Sasuke will always be on the rampage. If not him, then Naruto will definitely appear, which will spur the guy on to additional actions. These two are too impulsive, although they are trying to become professional ninja, but they are sorely lacking in experience, and this will only change the time and number of battles. The heads of the families prayed that the children would encounter the disgusting side of the shinobi world as late as possible. They could do only this. They did not have enough influence and strength for more, which infuriated both their father and older brother. The main problem is still Danzo, and there is almost no time. They have to protect the young rascals at all costs, and they only have a month to prepare, while Danzo does not suspect anything and cherishes his perverted dreams about the only daughter of Kushina and Minato. Hatake understood that Shimura Danzo knows who Naruto is, and since the scroll with the sign of the whirlpool was mentioned, it means that he has found what Kushina has been looking for all her life. There are only 2 scrolls that tell about the structure of the blood and chakra of the Uzumaki. One of them belonged to Kushina. As the clan's heim from the ruling branch, this scroll is still kept in her house, under the guise of an ordinary scroll with an encrypted record of some insignificant mission in the form of a clumsy report that they forgot to throw away. But this particular scroll is so wrapped in seals that even the Sharingan will not be able to recognize important information about the deceased clan in it. And since Danzo has become more active, the second scroll is in his office under reliable protection. Kakashi was so lost in his thoughts about problems and solutions that he missed Naruto's arrival from the academy. He woke up when dishes were rattling in the kitchen and the smell of food was wafting through the house, teasing his taste buds. Entering the kitchen, Hatake noticed his daughter's damp hair, pulled back into a high ponytail, and the curry that was almost ready. "Naru-chan, welcome back. How long have you been home?" The girl turned off the stove, turned around and answered with a radiant smile. "I've been home for 3 hours already. I kept calling and calling you, then I went to take a shower and started cooking," and more seriously added, "To-san, did something happen?" "Naru-chan, put up a barrier. The most powerful one." "Hi." The Ash catastrophe, as soon as she learned to create and correctly write Fuin seals, painted the entire house so that not a single secret refuge was protected like the Hatake house. There are a lot of pluses and not a single minus. Kakashi's Sharingan recognized a dozen defensive Fuin, a couple from wiretapping and surveillance of family members inside the yard and, especially, at home, also cleaning from dust and dirt. The stove, plumbing are made on Fuin Jutsu, as well as many other little things that make life easier for shinobi. Now it is clear why Kushina almost never cleaned the house and her house was almost perfect. It is convenient to be a master of Fuin Jutsu. But this wasn't the life Hatake wanted for his daughter. She wasn't supposed to have a wedding right after graduating from the academy, but to freely communicate with friends and male representatives, go on missions with the team, get bumps and bruises with life experience, start relationships with guys and secretly run on dates because her father doesn't allow her to go out with them, but not become a wife out of fear of becoming a wound for the root, including Danzo, especially Danzo. It's better to become Uchiha Sasuke's wife than to live in fear, shying away from every shadow. Kakashi returned to the kitchen, carrying a blood-red scroll with the Maelstrom sign on it, placed it in front of his daughter and said, "Naruto, listen to what I'm about to say very carefully. Believe me, I have something to tell you." Sakura was cleaning her room after a scandal with her mother, which ended not in the girl's favor. And as soon as the end of cleaning this mess of scattered pink-crimson things finally began to approach, the door suddenly opened and an ashen whirlwind burst into the room. "Sakura! You have no idea what just happened. This. Arg." Naruto walked into the room and pressed the hidden drawing on the wall. Haruno watched her friend silently. Meanwhile, she, having made sure that the barrier was set up, continued. "Maita-san gave me a graduation present. Everything would be fine, but now I have to get married. Who do you think?" I hope it's not for Hugo." the pink-haired girl answered uncertainly. Her friend waved her hands vaguely and said more calmly, "Kami-sama and my Two-sen won't give it to me. In short, my fiancé is Uchiha Sasuke." Naruto sat down tiredly on a chair and began thoughtfully sorting through her friend's things. Sakura was surprised by the creature sitting in her room and did not understand how she could combine so many things in herself. With friends and family, a bright, unbearable girl, living with emotions, in public cold-blooded, cynical and sometimes caustic. With the appearance of the mask, even fewer emotions became visible, only noticeable how the violet eyes sparkled. And this creature must be free, according to Haruno, and only then can one admire Naruto's grace and strength, like a wild animal, for an eternity. Naruto, unlike Sakura, attracted people to herself without doing anything special, only because she was so unusual. As a bride, Hatake should be in great demand, a beautiful, smart and strong kunoichi, and also the daughter of a famous copy ninja. Hatake understood very well that this marriage would give her many good perks. Taking the same Hyuga, she was given a man from the secondary family as a husband, which meant that her children would also wear the seals of subordination to the main branch. Once Kakashi-san told them about the charms of the secondary branch of the Hyuga clan and the inability to protect their own children from the application of seals that could kill them at the behest of the main family. Naruto's father then asked the girls to carefully choose their grooms, but now he himself chose an arranged marriage for his only daughter, which could not help but outrage at first glance, but in fact there is no more reliable support for the ashen friend. Everyone knows that the Uchiha clan is very proud and cares about its reputation, even if there are only 2 of its representatives left. Uchiha will never betray their spouse and will try in every way to love him. Uchiha are monogamous, and Sasuke has apparently already become enchanted by the hime of the Hatake clan and therefore trains like hell to succeed in preparing. For what? He trains himself to the point of exhaustion every day, spends his free time sleeping and studying, and then trains again. Sakura, once again treating micro-tears and muscle tissue in almost all places, asked Sasuke about his desire to become stronger, because at this rate he would kill himself sooner than become stronger. Uchiha was silent for a while, and when the girl stopped waiting for an answer, he suddenly said, "You know, Sakura, I don't understand why I'm doing this. No, I know how strong she is, but I want to protect her not only on the battlefield but in everyday life. To be a support, a man in her eyes, and not Itachi's little stupid brother." A doomed sigh did not usually suit the ideal Sasuke, but he apparently trusts Sakura. Naruto is like a wild cat, she needs to be interested and tamed, and to do this without having the strength. It's impossible. She does not recognize a weakling. Haruno sighed, completely agreeing with Uchiha, because Naruto was a real pest, but the pink-haired girl could only smile encouragingly and say, "Good luck, Sasuke-kun," the girl snorted quietly, "you'll need it." "Thank you, Sakura," the guy thanked her sincerely. The wounds on the young groom completely healed and he continued his training, developed by Might Guy specifically for Uchiha. And Sakura, shaking her head, went to the Irionen courses. It was still worth talking to Naruto, because the guy would tire himself out with training. And as Tenten said, Hatake, Uchiha, and Haruno are waiting for one team, although it is unknown who will be the sensei. But it's okay, they are used to twists of fate. Yes. It's better for you to learn the truth from me than from someone with some untrue details that came from who knows where. Kakashi's heavy sigh proved the honesty of his intentions. If the scroll really did fall into Danzo's aged paws, then there's even less time. Father and daughter thought about the problem. Now Shimura does not suspect anything and with a clear conscience prepares a plan to capture Naruto in order to bind the representative of 3 families to himself and produce children with Mokuton and Sharingan, and then, similar to the theories of Orochimaru, move into the body of a child. Abomination. Fuck him, not Hatake Jr. This is the conclusion reached by the family of dog lovers, but the girl was worried about another point, which she decided to clarify. "So I'm the daughter of the 4 and the bloody habanero?" An affirmative nod, which made Naruto say in confusion, "It might be strange, but I felt nothing but surprise. It was more shocking for me to learn about Danzo than about my connection to the Uzumaki clan." The girl fell silent, and her fake father waited for the verdict and possible hysteria, because Naruto was a girl who had too much to bear in one day. Perhaps she would reject such a worthless father and want to live separately. Seeing how his daughter took a deep breath before making an important decision, the man braced himself internally and prepared for the worst. I don't know what you managed to think up there, but this information doesn't change anything. Tsunade, you are the one who raised me and you are alive next to me, and my biological parents are dead. That's all. Naruto suddenly grinned, ruining the seriousness of the conversation. Moreover, who can I leave you with until my wedding? You will wither away all alone with your books. Kakashi could have expected anything from his daughter, but even these words became his reward for all 13 years of self-proclaimed fatherhood over a small disaster. Looking at his cheerful girl, who took the best from 3 parents, he laughed loudly, because the excitement that had been fettering the man's insides for years was finally dispelled, which is why he could now calmly continue living, knowing that this beast would not leave him and would not betray him. Tsunade, why Uchiha? Naruto asked the tormenting question. Since we've already made such revelations, I'd like to know. Even though I told you that I didn't want to force you into marriage, especially with clan members, but because of the route, I had to keep an eye on the guys, and Itachi also had to look for a bride. If I hadn't been infused with Kushina-san's blood during one mission, I would never have been able to read the scroll given to you today. The man fell silent for a moment, lowering his dark eyes to the tabletop. You see, this information messed up my plans. And then Itachi came and proposed a marriage between the families. And the Uchiha. They are monogamous and never betray their spouses, no matter what. I saw it myself, so I know what I'm talking about. And Sasuke became interested in you, which is also important. So I thought it would be nice to bring you together. Something like that. So that's what it comes down to, the girl drawled. And I couldn't understand it. He just turned out to be the best at the moment. Although you're right. And, taking a short pause, Naruto grinned again. It's easier for an Uchiha to set his brain straight if it gets stuck on something inappropriate. The head of the family could not say anything in defense of the student and only shrugged, showing that he supposedly knew nothing about it, but he himself often brought the student back down to earth, because the younger Uchiha was often stuck in complacency because of the Sharingan and the strongest clan. Fortunately, sparring with Naruto cooled his careless ardor and the guy began to pay more attention to other children. Even began training with Rock and Guy, which made the eternally young rival forget a little about the rivalry with Hatake. And the dog lover is only happy about this. Here Naruto jumped to her feet and, removing the barrier, gathered some cookies into a box and went to put on her shoes. Kakashi asked, a little dumbfounded. Daughter, where are you going? The girl straightened up, tying the standard shinobi sandals, and replied with a sly smile. I'll bring Haru-san the promised cookies for the beautiful mask and dropped by Sakura, a feigned sigh, full of grief over her unfortunate fate. I have to complain to my best friend about my bitter fate from time to time, otherwise she always complains to me about trifles. Let her listen to me now. Good luck, Tsunade. The front door closed behind the restless girl, but Kakashi did not dare to doubt his daughter. Such demons dance behind the seeming carelessness that even Ibiki was surprised, listening to the plans of a 6-year-old girl who slept and saw herself in his torture department as a future brainbreaker. Although he still uses her experimental seal to extract information from victims, the seal of the talker turned out to be quite reliable in its execution, and no willpower could shut the tongue of spies with sufficient impact on the victim of the brainbreaker's key. Hatake could only smile at the pleasant memories and, deciding to cook dinner for his prodigal daughter bride, went to the kitchen. Part 18 Commentary on Part 18. Sorry for the long silence, but I screwed up. I blew all the handwritten drafts while cleaning, and Vasca, inspiration, was drinking like a beast. So please throw slippers at me. I deserve it. I congratulate all defenders of the fatherland on their holiday. Itachi entered the Hatake house quietly, as if he had come not to visit at the appointed time, but on a secret mission to cut out the entire Hatake clan. But the man knew that this was unrealistic, because the house was so dotted with signal and protective fuin that the slightest infusion of chakra from the owner or her father, and the house became impregnable. Not a single Konoha bunker had such protection, as well as not a single clan shelter, even the most advanced. All of them, in comparison with the Hatake house, are just a children's house, where you can get by walking through the front doors, shouting about your arrival. Despite this, the seals did not weaken each other's influence, but on the contrary, strengthened it. At first, men even experimented with protection, but it was impossible to break through it. Created on the basis of Sin chakra, only signal seals mercilessly burned the skin, not allowing to forget and ignore the attackers. If the enemy managed to penetrate the house, before activation or during an attempt to break in, then he was struck by a huge discharge of lightning and frozen in place. Naruto showed herself talented, even brilliant in Fuinjutsu, and her ninjutsu was high enough even for the rank of Chunin. But the girl never boasted of her knowledge or pedigree, although according to her birth parents, she can put any clan shinobi to shame. The Uzumaki genes are worth a lot in the modern world, where not just fragments remain from the clan, grains of sand of greatness and former nobility. And their legacy in the world is considered lost for everyone except for the fearless testers of fate who risked going to Yuzukigure for untold riches and priceless knowledge of those who were stronger than even Senju and Uchiha. But there was no news of the daredevils after leaving for the island. Most likely, they all perished in the hunt for treasure, and it does not matter what they are, material or spiritual. Maybe they did not even get to the island, not to mention penetrating it. Itachi didn't have the habit of greeting Kakashi at home. His chakra was read and transmitted to whoever was nearby. It was convenient to know who was hanging around on your doorstep when you went to the market or on an urgent call. Naruto thought about this too, or her father reminded her. There was no point in thinking about it, because the system worked properly and with its beauty made those who wanted the same but couldn't for some reason. Such as Danzo with the elders and the Hokage, wonder and envy. Uchiha, with his thoughts, managed to reach the front door of his sensei and friend, as well as an indispensable ally in the secret affairs of the clan, especially when one bandaged person with nodding ruins tried to interfere in them. Sometimes men really wanted to sneak into their houses under the cover of night and cut their throats at night, and Naruto would help here break the flimsy protective seals so that there would be no unnecessary fuss and useless waste of time and chakra for the former Umbu, and Sasuke would be a cover and a scout in enemy territory. If anything, the children were ready to help, at the first request of the elders. That's what they said after that meeting, when they tried to send them off to root. Fortunately for the elders, Naruto and Sasuke did not like the village elders, although they were seen only once, which once again shows their incredible intuition and desire to protect the family. Then Kakashi and Itachi almost nod with their teeth a calm future for the children standing nearby, so that they would be free ordinary shinobi, and not Danzo's animals. Who knows how everything would have turned out for the two heads of families if Hiruzen had not stood up for the two men with blazing Manjikyu Sharingans. The children were ready to respond to any move towards their father and brother by launching senbons and kunai at those who wanted to harm them. Emerging from his memories, Itachi Uchiha realized that he was at the table in his friend's cozy kitchen, and his friend was busy making tea and serving food onto plates. Itachi began to examine his former sensei in service, noticing the slightest changes in the man's stance and movements. Perhaps it was the feeling of safety and protection, because behind the barriers there was absolutely nothing visible to the secret spies from the underground hidden society. "Where's Sasuke?" Kakashi asked, not turning away from the boiling kettle. The scent of herbal tea reached the brunette's nose, causing him to close his eyes in pleasure. The herbal mixture calmed Itachi's raging mind, making him breathe a little more calmly and enjoy the comfort and safety of this house. Take off a few masks. The Hatake family deserved it. Sasuke decided to get to Naruto's room in a roundabout way, Itachi answered with a sigh. At the sensei's surprised look, he grinned and explained, "A crowd of girls have been chasing after Otudo since the first day of training, except for 3 from his year. You should know them." "Yes, I know these girlfriends. Ino, Sakura, and Hinata, but with Naruto there are 4 of them, not 3, Kakashi said thoughtfully, setting out bowls of cream soup. The aroma awakened a feeling of hunger in the older Uchiha, but his upbringing did not allow him to pounce on the food. "Yes, but Naruto is a special case," Itachi said, swallowing saliva from the meat pie that had appeared, trying to speak as usual. Besides, she straightened out the brains of the blonde and the pink-haired girl, otherwise they would have gone astray too, and with their persistence. Even I'm scared to imagine it. Kakashi imagined this colorful picture of Sasuke running away and Sakura and Ino pursuing him, shouting, "Sasuke-kun is mine," and laughed, looking at the confused bearer of the great dojutsu. But the man at the table remembered the food getting cold and began to eat. "How much is left?" Hataki asked, sipping herbal tea. The plates were in the sink, where the clone of the owner of the house was washing them, and the original opened his daughter's homemade cookies. 5 days, the brunette responded, looking out the window. It was too dangerous to remain as relaxed as he was now behind the multi-layered protection. "I prepared everything." "It won't be anything fancy," Itachi said irritably. "This isn't the kind of wedding I wanted for these kids." "Quiet, hidden," he added very quietly, "forced. This isn't what I wanted." Kakashi, taking a sip of tea, looked at the cookie in his hands, twirled it and looked up at his former kohai. The guy had to lose too much in an instant. The entire clan was cut out in an instant. The younger brother was almost given to an orphanage, like Itachi, but old friends of the clan head took care of the little children. So the eldest was able to graduate from the academy in record time in a year and go on to Umbu, learning to be the head of the clan, albeit a dead one. Inuzuka and Hataki helped him as best they could, enlightened him on some aspects of clan troubles in the form of etiquette and verbal battles, where you need to use the right phrases to press on the sore spot, picking at old wounds. Unfortunately and fortunately, Uchiha turned out to be an excellent student, made many useful connections and took control of all the activities of the Uchiha clan as a direct heir. And began to take care of his brother. With the clan there were few difficult tasks, but raising a child and serving in the Umbu tore the guy in half. A child deprived of childhood for his own purposes. Perhaps if he had been, his life would have been different, but circumstances had developed in such a way and nothing could be done to change it. Only to help protect his little brother from most of the misfortunes of this bloody shinobi world. Kakashi thought, because if his father had lived, then he would have been different too. They made this decision themselves. Or rather, we did, but they took this step consciously. The man turned away from the thoughtful guest. If they were against it, they would have said so right away. "You're probably right, Kakashi-san," the brunette returned to his tea. Having taken a sip from the mug, he perked up a bit and asked more consciously, "Where's Naruto?" "In the bathroom," Hataki answered calmly. "Why do you ask?" Itachi just opened his mouth to answer something to this question, when Sasuke flew out of the corridor and Senbons and Kunai flew after him. "Uchiha, you're dead," thundered from the corridor. The men sighed in unison and looked at each other. "Emma. Here comes Sasuke-kun." The ash-haired man spread his hands, smiling easily. Part 19 For Sasuke, it was supposed to be a normal day with a good continuation in the form of visiting with his brother at the Hataki house, and maybe even an overnight stay if he managed to talk his uncooperative bride into it. The guy sighed heavily, because his chances were practically zero. Even his older brother couldn't spoil the wonderful mood, who was sarcastic about his latest defeat in a training fight with the younger Hataki. Having waved his hand at the older one, Sasuke looked back at the next street turn and noticed his girlfriends. Sakura and Ino waved their hands in greeting and suddenly looked somewhere into the alley, suddenly turning pale. The guy even stopped from such a reaction of the girls and was about to run to them and find out what happened in an instant, as the blonde, hiding behind her friend's back, showed with gestures, "Forgive me," and run as far and fast as possible. Little Uchiha was no fool and sensed the imminent approach of the fangirls, who were as annoying as they could be. Having mumbled something apologetic and pleading to Itachi, who was interested in what was happening, Sasuke took off into the first dark alley bypassing Hataki's home, so as not to run into the patrols of girls who passed through the entrance to the Uchiha quarter every hour, and every 30 minutes on weekends. Realizing that he was giving many reasons for ridicule by this escape, the younger Uchiha moved only through back streets, sometimes jumping onto roofs to move faster in the direction of a certain chakra, because he had never been to the obstinate Hataki's house. But luck was not on the brunette's side that day. Turning out of the alley onto the street, he almost bumped his nose into the chin of a girl who was part of one of the patrols to search for the incomparable Uchiha Sasuke, in short, Operation Pops. Women's logic is cruel and merciless even for themselves. Slowly exhaling, the boy noticed his girlfriends looking at him with big, frightened eyes. But only a miracle could fix the situation, which was now at home, and his brother would not even think of making his beloved little brother's life in Konoha easier. The replacement technique does not work on objects that are lighter than the body, even if it is a child's. And so, the black-haired boy was preparing to be torn apart into souvenirs for crazy girls, when Kiba's mother's dog came out from around the corner. Uchiha was happy with this chance that saved his life. Replacing himself with a dog, he apologized to the woman and jumped into the shadow of the alley, disappearing around the corner. Only the deaf did not hear the cries of "Where did you go, Sasuke-kun?" But there were no such people in the village, so the Uchiha, focusing on the signature of the bride's chakra, ran to Naruto as quickly and carefully as possible. The black-haired guy got to his beloved's house, using all the known camouflage skills and bypassed 2 squads of girls of 5 people, fortunately, without sensors, otherwise all the hidden sliding from shadow to shadow would have been useless. Having made his way to the 2-story Hatake house, Uchiha had the most brilliant idea of the day to climb into the house through the window into the girl's room. To surprise her with his skills and abilities, so that she could see how he had grown in the art of ninjutsu. Concentrating on the desired signature, the guy climbed the walls, using chakra as a connecting material between his body and the wall. Seeing an open window, the guy abruptly jumped into it, carefully and easily landing on all 4s, raising his head with a wide smile towards the girl's chakra. And he was shocked. The girl, almost a young woman, stood with her back to the Uchiha with her loose ash-blonde hair, from which water was dripping. The shinobi's gaze immediately noticed the girl's angular figure and glanced at the mirror, blushing intensely from the open view of the bride's naked body. The black-haired man felt how the blood began to race faster through his healthy teenage body, rushing to certain places. But one look at the girl's face and her eyes red with rage, makes Uchiha fall into the real world, where he is literally threatened with dying young and not quite healthy. Trying to calm his body and the girl's mind, the suicide slowly said, "Na Naruto, I can explain." Afterwards, the girl took out kunai from somewhere and started throwing them at the brunette, who avoided fatal hits to vital organs with the help of the Sharingan. But this angered the blonde even more, who had once managed to put on a large towel and was now throwing kunai with both hands, not forgetting to saturate them with chakra. When the pale blue tile on the wall was torn apart and broken, the guy managed to run out into the corridor and rushed to the 1st floor, and then ask for shelter or pity. Naruto ran after him, in a complicated henge of clothes so that no one would see the towel. She screamed curses and threw senbons and shurikens, not forgetting about chakra. As soon as Uchiha ran to the training ground, Hatake was able to take out her soul on the black-haired body of Sasuke, who was lying without strength after intense sparring. "Let's go into the house," the academy's most handsome man said quietly. "I'll at least give you some clothes, otherwise you'll catch a cold in a towel, and you'll rinse off." "Okay, Uchiha, I'll agree this time. If you climb through the window again, I'll kill you." "Yes sir," the guy beamed, no longer racking his brains about staying with his bride longer and alone without Itachi's teasing and Kakashi's sly looks.